if Michelle happens to be around, so we can actually have a conversation together. And hello,
Hi.
Michelle. Welcome back. Wonderful to see you again. I kind of want to kind of connect the dots between what you, Michelle, and what you, Jerry, were saying. We spoke a bit about regulation. And at this point, I'm wondering, do we feel that regulation is kind of the only way out in any way at all? Because will people's habits change slowly, if at all, and then living in the convenience and the comfort? It's probably going to be almost impossible, it seems, to make the change that we need. So is it the only way? What do we think? Jerry? Oh, maybe, sorry, Michelle.
Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably it's the fastest way. I think as we've seen with so many other issues, actually convincing people to change their habits, particularly when we've become ingrained with this kind of throwaway lifestyle where all these things have very little upfront cost to us, but actually have a very big environmental impact. It's very hard to change habits, and it's a slow process. I kind of think regulation is probably the fastest way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jerry?
Yeah, I think what Michelle showed there near the end of her presentation about community activism, I actually think that is the driver, that's the key driver, because we won't get the legislation because most of the governments are owned by big tech. So there's no incentive for most of the governments to actually act. And the right to repair movement is one of the most positive, inspirational movements that I've seen in my lifetime. And that started as community activism. As an individual, we have no power, right? We have no power. But as a community, we have real power. Apple tried to destroy the right to repair movement multiple times. All the big tech companies, whether the John Deere, the huge manufacturer of farm machinery, tried to destroy because the farmers wanted to be able to repair their tractors in the process. So the big tech industry tried to destroy the right to repair movement, but because it was so community driven, they couldn't destroy it. And then it began to grow and grow. And then the governments began to take notice and says, oh, the community is getting active around the right to repair. And only after the community got active did the government start to move, because it gave them confidence to take on big tech. So I don't think we will get the legislation that we desperately need without community activism. So we need activists. It's not enough, unfortunately, for you to be watching this and saying, I get it. You got to get active. We need activists today.
Yeah, I think what's also kind of really insightful to me, also kind of impactful to me, is that every time I start looking around and I see kind of conversations around development, around design, about engineering, about anything, I always have this feeling that we kind of get to the point where we want to be better, we want to improve things, we want to kind of always in a position where we feel like we want to do something good, but then it also feels like sustainability is always kind of pushed to the side. So we kind of got to the point where accessibility has become like almost a part of what we do. Like, I mean, unfortunately, not for every project, but it seems like it would be very difficult to start a new project without even considering accessibility from the start, right? We got to the point also where usability has become kind of a part of that story. So when we're designing with the usability and accessibility in the beginning, right? Design systems have become a part of that. And I'm wondering what needs to happen in our community so that sustainability is just becoming the way of working, so that it just becomes almost a default mode, like, again, accessibility considerations or usability considerations or design systems consideration. What needs to happen there? Have any opinions on that? Maybe? Michelle?
So I would actually slightly disagree with you there, Vitaly.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually accessibility, unfortunately, still doesn't have the focus that it needs in many areas. And I think, unfortunately, like web sustainability is possibly in a similar position, or like maybe even further behind. But I think it's great that a lot of developers in our community care about accessibility and want to build accessible products, but actually companies don't unless it affects their bottom line. A lot of developers and designers have to fight really hard to get accessibility on the agenda and get it taken seriously. So I think, yeah, like regulation and actually affecting the company's bottom line is what it takes to get it moved up the agenda.
Yeah, this is you're absolutely right on that. What I meant, of course, is like in our community, like in our active community, where we have meetings like this, right? It seems like we already understand and we kind of at least try to apply accessibility at a larger scale. As you're absolutely right, it is not the case, and I'm kind of hopeful that with the EU Accessibility Act that comes into force in 2025. Where this is kind of, I don't know if anybody is familiar with it from the wonderful people who are watching us now. But basically, this is an act, Accessibility Act. I think it's called EU Accessibility Act, if I'm not mistaken, that needs to be implemented in all EU member states by May 2025. And I get a lot of companies reaching out to me or to my colleagues, really at this point being almost not shocked, I would say, but unprepared. They don't even know what that means. So all of a sudden things start moving, which gives me a lot of hope. And I'm very, very excited about that. And we got GDPR. And of course, we all hate cookie consents, but it's still privacy-wise, it is a move in the right direction. So also maybe, Jerry, what is your take on kind of how can digital sustainability, and I don't mean like a sustainability like in global scope, but especially digital sustainability when we are building digital products, and so many people rely on enterprise software, on all kinds of digital products. What do we need to do to make sure that sustainability is becoming a default?
Yeah, I think, Michelle alluded to the challenges. I think it is activism, even though that's very uncomfortable in the process. If we can get together as developers or designers, even in the same company, and say the design community or the developer community, or we can make statements that we support this approach, or we're making these proposals, because without that sort of push, it's not often in the short-term profitable business interest to do this. Basically, there's more money in destroying the environment than in saving the environment. We have created this extraordinary economy that is going to blow up in the next 50 years, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, but it's not going to last. I'm older. It's not such a big deal for me, but if you're younger, in 2050 and 2060, so it's for your future self, and certainly if you're thinking of having children in this sort of world, if we don't become activists and don't do something. I mean, COP28, run by an oligarch. If the community doesn't get together, all the multiple communities, and if we don't get activism occurring, and I find it, extraordinarily distant how the digital developers feel that it's not really part of my world. The world may be burning, but I'm over in digital, I'm okay. Well, we're not okay. And that seems to be an attitude that I've found so much over the years, and it's really very disappointing. And of course it's very difficult for activists to work within that sort of environment, but work within it we must.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. We have all the conversations around AI at this point. I mean, this has been quite a big topic for the last year, and it just keeps going. And AI is just really, really bad for sustainability. Do we see AI, I don't know, becoming more efficient in any way, becoming even sustainable? Is it a thing, or how are we feeling about this entire thing? I mean, it's a very difficult topic to think about and to discuss, I guess. I know, of course, that just to kind of bring a bit of in the context, from my experience, every time when we have a conversation with the company around, so should we do something like AI? Well, that depends on what we want to do. I mean, probably the answer should be no, but at the same time, they don't want to wait. They're kind of pushing for it. So sometimes I feel almost lost to how to argue against that. So I mean, this is just me admitting that I'm lost. I guess this is it, right? I really don't know. So Michelle, what is your take on this? Is somebody, let's say, comes to you and say, well, we have this wonderful project, and I think that you're also working in a space where AI is or will be becoming quite important. How do you manage it?
So yeah, I think it's a difficult question. It feels a little bit more like a bit like, there's this big kind of tidal wave of AI on the horizon, and some of that's quite depressing, because it does consume so much power. I saw a report recently about like generating an image with AI compared to a human creating an image, and their finding was that it was so much worse with AI. Like energy generation that's required for that. So yeah, I do try to point out the carbon impact of that kind of thing. I also work for a company that specializes in AI for renewable energy sector, and sort of optimizing industrial processes to make them more efficient. So I'm kind of on both sides of the fence there. I think there are some specific use cases where it can do good potentially. But yeah, I don't feel hugely optimistic, to be honest. I don't really have a great answer for that question, but I do think there's a lot of companies and products rushing to bring out something like with AI because it's a buzzword and it's fashionable, but they don't actually need it. I would really encourage people to pause and to consider whether they really need AI in their product.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Jerry, any words of optimism from you?
Well, AI. What's AI going to do if it works? In 90% of the time, it's going to sell us more products, because the companies who are developing AI are advertising companies. They're Google and Facebook and Microsoft Bing. So the reason AI has been designed is to get us to become better consumers. So AI, if it works, will drive overconsumption in the vast majority of situations. And even this idea of efficiency. Efficiency has never led to reductions in energy use. Efficiency has always led to increases in energy use, because we just create more things, or we have more cars or bigger cars, or so. Unfortunately, efficiency has caused the climate crisis rather than solved it. We would be much better having 1,000 filthy tankers traveling the world than 1 million efficient ones traveling the world with cargo. So we need to question a lot of things, and we've got a short period of time to question them. But one of them is this idea of technology, this deification of technology. We've replaced the old gods with the new gods, and the new gods are AI and apps and Google and etc. And this, sense that technology is going to bring us into this wonderful new world. Well, the technology industry blossomed from the 70s onwards, the period when most of the damage was done to our climate, to our soil, to our water, to our oceans. So we need to start questioning things, and pretty quickly. And AI is one of the things we need to so seriously question.
Yeah. I think it all starts also with the small habits, and I think that's to wrap up. I think maybe we can all share, maybe also the wonderful people in the chat could also share just some of the habits that you got used to over the years now to just maybe consume less technology, or just make sure that you are living a more sustainable life. Like one of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago, which I'm personally very proud of, I started whenever I need to get bananas in a store, which I'm sure maybe is not the best idea in the first place. But whenever I get bananas, I always look out for single bananas that are left alone, because very often nobody takes them, and usually I take like 3 or 4. So I'm just collecting the single bananas. That always helps. And then, of course, like many of you probably do something similar, like just leave your phone alone for a day, and computer, of course, as well. Like weekends on Saturdays and Sundays become so much better. And I also have this very dumb iPhone, the old iPhone, right? And it's really not great at keeping energy, I have to say. And I also turned off all emails. I don't have any access to emails from here. It's a wonderful companion for your Saturday. So you can take it and cannot do much anymore. I don't need much either. So Michelle, I'm sure that you probably have some interesting habits as well.
Yeah, so similar to you, Vitaly, I've got my my old iPhone 8, which is still going. As Jerry said, I know, like, upgrading your devices all the time, like, is pretty bad for the environment. So holding on to your old devices is one of the better things you can do. So it's nearly at the 5-year mark, which I'm hoping I can make it to, but it's stumbling along. And Apple isn't doing updates for it anymore, so I think
that's right.
in a bad place. Yeah, which is another reason why we have to, put pressure on the companies to do these things. I also, at the beginning of this year, I made a promise to myself to not buy any new clothes for the whole year, and we're nearly at the end of the year now, and I've managed that. So.
Yeah, well, I try to do the same actually, but there is a little hole here, so I'll have to work on that. You don't see it, right? Oh, well, did I say it loud? I did. Okay, so here we go. Excellent. Jerry?
Well, very similar in a way. I think we might be the iPhone 8 generation.
This is it. We're going to stay with the iPhone 8 forever.
Well, that was when I discovered. It was around then that I really, because before that I was totally gung-ho. I mean, I wrote a report for the Irish government in 1996 called Ireland, the Digital Age, the Internet, which was this wonderful world that's going to happen. And it took me a long time to actually realize all this sort of stuff. So holding on, I really try to hold on to stuff. I've got plasters and tapes and wires, and I try to walk more. I try to, physically use your own energy. Bought a bicycle again a couple of years ago. We've kind of semi-retired. We moved to Valencia, but we deliberately chose a city where we could walk to everything. So we can walk to the supermarket, and I'm going to start doing. I learned one specific thing today. I'm going to, because I like those bananas as well in the process. I'm going to look for those singular bananas. I think that's a lovely idea. But it's also telling these stories, and it's tell the stories to other people. Get what I've tried to do, the commitment is try to tell as many stories to as many people as possible, because we need to become activists. I never imagined I'd be an activist in sustainability 3 or 4 years ago, but to actually try and get other people interested and involved. I think that's such an important thing, and I think we're all doing that in our own ways. But really respect the materials. I've begun to look at materials very, very differently. To actually honor, the aluminium or the copper, or that, and the impact it has had on the actual planet. So I've really tried to think about the materials that go into my life. in my home, in my apartment, my sheen, and what was the impact on those materials, and to really respect them, to care for them, to look after them, to keep them in life as long as possible.
Well, that's a wonderful ending for today. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing your wonderful insights. I sincerely appreciate you coming in here and taking the time. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.